something's happened in the last few months that you haven't really made sense of. Let's think about that. Perhaps it's that you've said yes to something you really would normally say no to. Or your team, who are fabulous and that you really trust, are starting to check back on things they should have really decided themselves. Maybe you got to Friday and thought, what have I actually achieved? Or maybe you've asked yourself the big question, do I still love what I do? And then felt nothing. Good news is, none of it's a crisis. In fact, that's why it's so hard to spot. Founders are brilliant at crises. We can solve anything. But together, they're telling you something very specific. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what and some of the questions to ask yourself. So let's begin with what you can see. Your business grows in a series of waves. A wave is like a surge, a big new client, or maybe you've moved to B2B, or, a product that you've pivoted, or, just landed an amazing hire that's made something else really possible. Listen, you feel every wave. It's emotional, it's passionate, and it's what growth is about, and you love it. But here's what founders assume. If you get enough waves, you end up somewhere different. But that isn't how it actually works. Because underneath the waves, your business sits in what we call a phase. And a phase is structure. It's the stage your business is generally operating in. It doesn't count how busy you are or what you've done, how you've built. It's forming, survival, establishing ground, seeing success, or keeping growth. But here's the problem. Listen, you feel every wave. You're probably involved in it, but you don't feel phases. There's no moment, there's no announcement, and nobody tells you. You just quietly go onto your waves and hit this ceiling, and then start to assume, if I work harder, if I work against it, then I'll push through. So you ride each wave, and you're busier each time. More clients, more complexity, adding more value in. But you're still standing in exactly the same place, maybe as last year or the years before. And that's why the growth, it is real, but it feels heavy. And this is important. You did grow, but you haven't moved. So here's why it's an interesting idea, and that's what we're going to talk about now. Let's assume that you take advice from a fellow founder, how they spend their week, what their structure is, what they're doing. Look, it's generally good advice, but it's for her business. It could make it worse for yours. Maybe you hire in the wrong moment, too early. You're paying for capacity you just can't direct yet. You're too late. You spent the year building this and hitting this ceiling. Maybe you're starting to run on instinct, and you've stopped scaling, thinking it's not worth it. The most important thing is that the effort in really starts to become something. It doesn't compound into nothing. That's what makes you feel trapped. The dislike of work that you used to love, that you're running a business that really doesn't feel like yours anymore. It's not a motivational problem. It's usually a founder doing work that belonged to an earlier phase because nothing has moved on. So what should move when the phase changes? Well, it's 3 things. And these things really matter. If we can get these 3 things aligned, it solves 80% of frictions. It's how you structure. How do you create value? Because creating that value at the start, it changes later on. And how decisions get made. Who decides and how much has to still come through you as the founders. Those 3 carry roughly 80% of the friction most founders feel. And here's how they work. Each capability is built for a phase. That's the stable part. Your structure should fit the stage, the phase that you're in. Then they flex with the waves. That's the responsive part. A busy quarter shouldn't require rebuilding your business. It should be something that your structure can absorb. It's aligned. supporting the phase, dancing with the waves. And when that's true, growth feels seamless. When your capabilities are still built for a phase that you left behind, every wave costs more than it should, and mostly the founder's energy. Listen, I lived with it. I was actually in it when I was opening up Specsavers in the Netherlands. We were opening 30, I think in peak, 40 stores a year in the Netherlands. And that's how we were measuring growth. Wave after wave, everyone was real. We were opening stores, we were growing. But every decision still came through me. Every escalation, and my team were amazing. I remember thinking, we're bigger, I've got more amazing people. Why is this harder? Why am I still working 80 hours a week? I assumed the answer was more effort. So that's exactly what I did. And it didn't ease, because we were riding the waves brilliantly, really operating in. But decision making still belonged to a business that we had right at the beginning when there's only 4 people there. And that gap was the weight. So here's what to do right now. I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and you're going to answer them really honestly. And it begins that thinking about your phases. Question 1. What has genuinely grown in the last 18 months in your business? Customers, revenue, team, complexity. Name it specifically. Question 2. What is still being done exactly the same way as it was being done 2 years ago? Decisions, or who's responsible for what, or how you actually create the value towards your customer. Now look at the distance between those 2 answers. That distance is your weight, is that friction. You don't have to fix it today. Just stop calling it a sort of personal failing or frustration. You've grown. That is real. You have achieved. And it's worth saying plainly, because the heaviness makes founders doubt whether they actually have. But waves alone don't move you into a new phase, and that's what you need to be doing. And when you're sort of organised, and how do you create value, and how people are making decisions are the 3 capabilities that you begin on to create that alignment. So the question was never what's wrong with me. It's what part of my business is no longer in the same phase as the rest. That misalignment. That's a different question entirely. And unlike the first one, it actually has an answer. So during the videos of this month, we're going to be looking at them one by one on how we're going to analyse those capabilities so that you understand them all, answering the right questions to align. And it's a really important part. Waves and phases, now earn their place. Waves are, what you feel. This is why it's important. So, I hope you enjoyed this month's videos, all about aligning the capabilities so that your energy goes in and moves you forward, not only in growth, but shifts your business so that it can support that growth. Enjoy.